This week on the Mary Sunshine Show, we're back and we're really excited to talk a lot about visibility versus invisibility. Stay with us. Let's go.
I'm ready to fly down 65, hit the coastline in the sunshine. I'm going to find my new high, hit the coastline in the sunshine.
All right, welcome back to the Mary Sunshine Show. We are back this week, Colleen. We're super excited to be back because it's been a few weeks since we've been able to have one of these episodes. And today is a pretty important topic because today is about the visibility of MS and the invisibility side.
Right.
And we're going to talk a little bit about maybe even some other diseases that have some similar things too, right? That it really affects a lot of people when the disease goes from the invisible to the visible, and even vice versa when it's still invisible. So let's talk a little bit about, what are your thoughts on that? So first of all, describe what invisible means, like especially from the MS perspective. Like, what are we looking at?
So when I'm taking my children to school and picking them up from school, and there's lots of other parents around, and my drop foot is not always great or good, and I feel like I look drunk. Or when I go anywhere, if I look a little bit drunk, people are questioning it, and I think because they can see that I'm not walking properly and I'm not doing things the way maybe others would do them. So it's a little intimidating, a little isolating.
So MS then isn't always invisible, is it? Because that would be kind of what you're thinking. You know, that's kind of the invisible side, even though we can sort of see that drop foot happening, right? As you say, you know, somebody who doesn't have MS or isn't used to seeing it sees you as potentially drunk, as you said. But that's kind of still the invisible side, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Because really, they're not able to define in their head what's going on. They have a definition or a societal definition of what's happening. Does that happen anywhere else? Like, not just the drop foot, but is there any other symptom of MS that you find that stands out as invisible?
That's a good question. Well, I can't find words, and so that's not visible. No one can see what's happening in my brain, but when I'm talking to someone and I have trouble finding a word, they just think I'm maybe a little unintelligent, but they don't know that it's my brain not being able to find and locate the word I want.
So really the cognitive side too, right? Yeah. They might look at you as like, wow, did you go to school or something like that? And hopefully that people out there are not people like that. But I mean, that's the reality, is some people do look at it that way, going, wow, how could you not have thought of that? Or how could you not have come up with that? So what's your recommendation for people out there that kind of see that happening and are quick to judge?
I think that it all comes back to like empathy. You need to understand that anyone out there, everybody is just trying to do their best in life. So if you see someone who's maybe stumbling a little bit, don't assume the worst. Assume that maybe they can't help it. Maybe they have a disability. Maybe they have something that you can't see, but don't judge them.
Yeah, and that's a big thing, is, you know, not understanding the other person's life. If you've never met the other person, how could you possibly know whether they went to school or whether they're having a cognitive impairment at that time, the cog fog, as you've called it before. And that, I think, you know, is really important for not just our viewers. And our viewers, a lot of them are fellow MSers, right? I mean, you've received tons of great feedback on the first 2 episodes, which is awesome. But there's also a lot of people that hopefully are spouses that are listening, even including myself. I don't have MS personally, and it's something for me that I would say that I'm used to now, but I had to get used to, right? I mean, our story is a little different. Sometimes spouses are coming in the early adulthood of somebody, well, most of the time really, but we've known each other since kindergarten. So I've known you've had MS since you were a teenager. So it was a little different for me, but there were still things that, you know, having not lived with you before, having not been with you every single day like I am now, that I had to learn that were MS symptoms that I didn't really realize are MS symptoms, or things that I just had to understand better. And one of those things we haven't talked about yet, which I think speaks to invisibility, is fatigue.
That's exactly what my next.
So talk to us about fatigue.
So, fatigue is not just physical. It's physical fatigue, but it's also psychological mental fatigue, when you're doing a lot of thinking and you're trying to, for example, plan supper and locate where are the fries, where's the rice, where's the chicken, and it's exhausting to be in your fridge, in your cupboards, and looking around for everything. People can't see that that's exhausting, but darn, it's exhausting.
Well, and for you too, like you mentioned that's a combination of, let's go back to the fridge and the freezer, for example, because that's a good example. And where someone like myself may not find that the fridge is, and our fridge is out of sorts, but I may not find that it's out of sorts even when it's better than it is today. But you might, and that's partially because of the combination of the fatigue and looking for things and vision, right? Vision disturbances.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about how that feels or looks.
Visual disturbances?
Yeah, especially when you're looking for something in the fridge or things.
Well, for me, like looking like side to side, just back and forth, up and down, and moving my visual field is tricky because it's not always straight. Like when I look from here to here, it takes my vision time to kind of, I don't even know, get straight.
Exactly, yeah.
And so when you're like looking everywhere for things, it's not easy because you're having to adjust your vision, and it's that itself is fatiguing.
Exactly, and so we've had examples of where you've had fatigue looking at the fridge, for example, and maybe it was a milk carton, and it was right at the front of the fridge. And I'll come over and I'll be like, it's right there, right in front of you. But what I don't get is, because I don't have the visual disturbances, is that it took you some time to see it because your vision had to catch up, right? Yeah. That's an interesting thing for, I think, spouses especially to get used to, but other family members, maybe even your kids as well, right? I mean, the kids have to understand what's going on too. It might be, mommy, it's right there, but really it's because your vision's catching up. And then because of that, you have to concentrate so much harder than, say, a person who doesn't have the visual disturbances, right? And then that leads to the fatigue. So there you go. That's why it's hard to look in a fridge, right?
Right.
So let's stick with fatigue for a second, because obviously, looking all over the fridge, finding the milk carton, wherever it may be, that's fine. But after that, like after you make the kids' lunches or after you've made dinner or something or emptied the dishwasher, like things that you would think are daily tasks are a little more for you, and you'll often have to sit down or you'll often have to lay down or something or just take a break.
Yeah.
And you call this tired, not lazy. Talk to us about that.
Well, I find that, so I often need to sit after I do a task, or often I'll just lay for a minute. And I think that people may be judging me or my family may be judging me as lazy, but I think that everyone just needs to know that people with MS are not necessarily lazy, they're very tired.
Yeah. So, it's funny because you talk to me about two things there usually when we talk about this. And one is tired, not lazy. You're sitting, but you're doing that to recharge, essentially. You're not doing that to be lazy or to say, well, that's it. That's the only task I'm doing today. Those types of things. It's not like, whereas maybe a husband does that, but not me, I promise. But, but for you, I'm going to take a break because I need to recharge. I need to reduce the fatigue, right?
Yeah, and I think the best connection that I can make is it's like a car without gas. Your car is not being lazy, it just needs gas in order to move.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I need to recharge in order to continue to operate.
Exactly. So that's what I think that brings up an important point, because and it's probably your next point, which is the fact that the family, not just the spouse, but everybody needs to understand that, right? And what's your advice there, for family members?
Well, I think that the family members just need to be cognizant of the fact that your family member, your partner, your friend, they're not being lazy. They're doing probably the very best they can. I want you to look at ways and consider how you might be able to help and assist. And remember that you don't want to assist just because I, as someone who's lived with this for many, many years, I want people to know that I am capable. I will do things. I'm not lazy, but help is always kind and good.
Yeah, and not roll your eyes help, here we go again, right?
Yeah.
That's probably people's temptation from sometimes, because they're so easily able to do 2 or 3 tasks at a time, they might consider, especially if they don't live with you, like
Yeah.
extended family might go, what are you doing? Like, you know, those types of things, if they don't understand and watch this episode to just to determine what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a really good sum of the invisible side of MS, and I'm sure of other diseases too that haven't progressed to a point where they're super visible yet. Like this
Right.
is a part of MS that it's visible in a way because you can see the person has fatigue, but you just don't understand it.
Yeah.
And it's probably more lack of understanding than it is visibility.
Exactly.
Because it is technically visible in some ways. You're talking about the balance and things like that too, but it's really the understanding of what's going on. It's really not a full-fledged visibility, I guess is the best way
Yeah,
to put it.
absolutely.
So let's shift to the point where there's a lot of MSers watching right now that may be in wheelchairs, that may be using walkers or canes, that may be dealing with more serious symptoms now as part of their MS. That's the visible side.
Yes.
What do those people face? Even though you haven't faced it yet, I know you've seen it. What do those people face?
Well, I think they face an internal belief that maybe they have kind of become less than, right? Like if you are not capable to walk and you're not able to work and you're not able to do the things that regular people do, you'd feel a little bit down about yourself, and you'd feel judged. You'd feel judged about everyone watching you and wondering, why do they need a wheelchair? Why,
That's it right there, I think. I think that's where, you use quotes regular because, and I'm glad you use quotes because nobody's regular. There's nobody in this world that doesn't have something, right?
Exactly.
And so to say regular, well, what is regular, right? And I love that you use quotes there for it. So, everybody has their thing. Everybody has their story that'll break your heart. Was
Yeah.
it Sheryl Crow or whatever? But it's true. It's true. Almost everybody has something, right?
Yes.
And it may not be the same thing, but it is something. And I think people have to be more understanding of that and respectful, because you talked about right now just about how somebody might sit there and wonder what's wrong with this person. Why do they need the wheelchair? We have family members with other diseases like Huntington's
Yes. Yeah.
and things that go through the exact same thing, right? And they're questioning, what does this person do? Why can't they communicate with us the same way? Why can't they get down the stairs, they're on their own, those types of things as easily as someone else? So let's talk on two fronts. First, let's talk to the person going through it. What are your thoughts for that person, as they try to make the best of everything they can do?
Sadly, I think that anyone who is ill needs to at least be understanding that while people may appear as though they're judging you, you have to just remember they don't get it. And that is what I have to remind myself all the time. Yeah, I might be walking like I'm drunk. Sadly, I have to internalize it and say, this is who I am, and they don't understand. But when it comes to other people being more understanding, I think that everybody, I'm blanketing statementing this, just be empathetic, right? Like as humans, if we look at the world with empathy, then we're not going to judge someone because they can't walk properly or because they need a wheelchair. Just be understanding and empathetic.
Yeah, and imagine if everybody just said one time a day where somebody they saw in a wheelchair or with a cane or something like that, or a motorbike or whatever it is that they're using, said, what can I do to make this person's day better? Imagine if they said that instead of asking the question, what's wrong with this person?
That's a very good point.
Whether that's holding it doesn't have to be anything major. It could be holding the door open for them,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. But it could be something really, really small. If more people took that mission just to say, what's one thing I can do, and don't even think about that person specifically. Think about what's one thing I can do today to help somebody have a good day.
Exactly.
And if that ends up being the person you see in the wheelchair or using the cane or whatever, and even if it's just sometimes it's just chatting with them because they're they've been working so hard to get up that flight of stairs.
Right.
They get up that stairs and they have a little chat with you. It doesn't have to be about climbing the stairs. It can be a normal daily chat.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just, brightening somebody's day who's working hard to do those things, I think is a really cool way to look at it. And having that, what can I do to help this person do something I can't, essentially, or I can, sorry, rather. So,
It just makes me think of a very, very basic saying that I was talking to my 8-year-old daughter about the other day. Treat others as you wish to be treated, right? So you don't know what's happening to that person. You can't assume you know, but let's treat everybody with respect and kindness.
Exactly. I mean, because it could be you at any time, right?
Exactly.
Even if it's not a disease, you could walk out in front of a bus by accident and be paralyzed the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Or lose your life or something, right? And tomorrow, you always say tomorrow's never promised to us.
No.
I mean, that is the truth too. But even if it's not death per se, it's
Yeah.
also, tomorrow's not promised to you in the way that you experience
Exactly.
today. Again, where you could be hit by a bus or whatever. So it's all just about being respectful
Exactly.
and maybe don't sit there and go, what's wrong with you? How about don't ask? There's obviously something that they're dealing with, whether it's MS, Huntington's, Parkinson's,
Yeah.
Alzheimer's, dementia, all the different things that people go through. Be respectful of that and don't start asking, which one do you have? Like those types of things. Just how can I help?
Yeah.
How can I make your day
That's
better?
actually a very good
Exactly.
philosophy for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good spot for us to wrap up this topic, don't you? Be
Yes.
kind.
Be
nice to
kind.
people. and whether it's slightly visible like fatigue or just helping, do the dishes because it's a lot for somebody going through this, or whether it's super visible and you see them trying to put their scooter in the back of the car, maybe you can reach out and help their spouse or even help them just have a better day. Any way you can do that, that's about Merry Sunshine, right? That's making things a lot more sunny for other people that may not have experienced that with the rest of their day. So what do you think? Should we end it there for the folks?
I think that's a
I think
beautiful
that's a great spot.
episode.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching Merry Sunshine. We'll be back again next week with an all-new episode and weeks after that too. We're not going to take as big a break this time, so get used to us. We're back. All right. Thanks everybody
Thank
for
you.
watching.